17 calls, not one answer. And the worst part? I still checked if my phone had signal, as if the problem was me. That's where it started. Not the cheating, that had begun long before, I'd later learn, but the moment I began to unravel the threads of our so-called perfect life. It was a Thursday, one of those gray Seattle days where the sky looks like it's given up trying, the kind of day that smells like rain and wet concrete, where you crave warmth, a good meal, soft lighting, someone waiting for you at home. That someone was supposed to be Nathan. My husband. We had this tradition. The first Thursday of every month, we'd have us night. No work calls, no emails, no excuses. Just dinner, wine, and conversation that usually drifted from random dreams to house projects we'd never finish. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. At least, I thought it was. That morning, I woke up earlier than usual, made his favorite breakfast, eggs, sourdough toast, and that honey lavender latte he loved. He'd once said I made it better than any barista in Pike Place. Funny how you remember small compliments when everything else starts to fall apart. He kissed my forehead, mumbled something about a late meeting with the team, and was gone before I could ask which team he meant this time. By noon, the drizzle had turned into a full-on Seattle rain, the kind that drums against the window like it's trying to warn you about something. I set the table anyway. Candles, wine breathing, salmon marinating in the kitchen. I even put on that blue dress he once said made me look like a Pacific mermaid. At 6 p.m., I texted him, "Running late?" No reply. At 7 o'clock, I called once, then again, then again. By 8 o'clock, I'd hit 17 calls. 17. Each one sent straight to voicemail. There's a specific kind of silence that happens when your gut already knows the truth, but your brain is still writing excuses. Maybe he's in a tunnel. Maybe his phone died. Maybe he just forgot. I sat there on the couch, phone in hand, staring at the flickering reflection of candlelight on the wine glass. The salmon had gone cold. The house smelled like rosemary and burnt hope. Then something inside me, a quiet, practical voice, whispered, "Stop waiting." Start checking, so I did. Nathan and I shared most of our accounts. Joint finances, cloud storage, the usual married life transparency we bragged about to friends. I logged into our shared credit card portal. There it was, a hotel charge. The kind of hotel you don't stay in for business meetings. The kind that has mood lighting and champagne service. Space Needle View Suites. The same place we'd gone for our anniversary 2 years ago. My stomach twisted. I told myself maybe it was a work function. Maybe someone else used the card. Maybe. But the timestamp said 7:42 p.m., right around the time I was calling him for the 9th time. Then came the messages. In our shared cloud, there were synced iMessages. Not all, but enough to paint the picture. I scrolled, numb, through fragments of words that didn't belong to me. "Miss you. You smell like pine and sin. Next time, no work talk." And then her name, Olivia Stanton, his boss, the one with the sharp suits and that "don't mess with me" confidence. The woman he'd described once as intimidating in a good way. My hands went cold. The air felt heavy. Outside, thunder rolled faintly over the sound, and for a second, I almost laughed. It felt cinematic, like life had decided to imitate a bad drama. I didn't cry. Not then. There wasn't even anger yet. Just stillness, like my body was buffering reality before deciding how to react. By the time I heard his car pull into the driveway, it was close to midnight. The rain had softened to a whisper, tapping gently against the kitchen window. I sat at the table, dinner long gone cold, still wearing that blue dress. The candles had burned down to pools of wax. The door opened. Nathan stumbled in, smelling like expensive perfume and arrogance. He didn't even flinch when he saw me sitting there. Just tossed his keys into the bowl and said, "You're still up?" "Yeah," I said softly. "Date night, remember?" He froze for half a beat, just long enough for guilt to flicker before pride buried it again. "Oh, right. Sorry." The meeting ran late. I didn't say anything. Just looked at him. Really looked. His collar was crooked. His hair smelled faintly of a perfume I didn't wear. Then, I still can't believe it, he sat down across from me, grabbed a fork, and took a bite of the cold salmon. "This is good," he said. "You should have eaten without me." I remember the metallic clink of his fork against the plate. That sound lodged itself in my brain like a trigger. Finally, I asked, "Where were you?" He exhaled. Long, dramatic, the kind of sigh people give before saying something they think makes them honest. "With Olivia," he said flatly. "It just happened." Those 3 words, "it just happened," are a special kind of cruelty. They erase choice, responsibility, humanity. Like he tripped and fell into her arms by accident. My throat went dry. My heart was racing, but my face stayed calm. "You're telling me this now because—" He shrugged. "You were going to find out anyway. I figured it's better you hear it from me." I watched him, this man I'd shared 10 years of my life with, and I realized something. I didn't recognize him. His tone wasn't remorseful. It was bored, detached. "How long?" I asked. "A few months, maybe more. We connected." He smirked slightly, like it was a compliment. My hands were trembling under the table, but I forced them still. "And the hotel?" He nodded, chewing, completely unbothered. "Yeah, couple times there, her office, once in her car. Don't make it a big deal, Em. It's not like it meant anything, that was it." The moment something inside me, the part that still believed in us, died quietly. No fireworks, no screaming, just silence and clarity. I stood up, took his plate, and carried it to the sink. My voice was steady when I said, "You should get some sleep." He looked confused. Maybe he expected a meltdown, a thrown plate, a tearful plea, but I just turned off the lights and walked upstairs. That night, while he snored beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling every second of my heartbeat. I wasn't crying. I was planning. By 3 a.m., I was sitting at my desk, laptop open, creating a new spreadsheet. Title, Operation Quiet Thunder. I didn't know exactly what I'd do yet, but I knew this. I wouldn't let him walk away from what he did. Not easily. Not quietly. And as the rain outside softened into mist, I whispered to myself, "You chose the wrong woman to underestimate, Nathan." I didn't sleep that night. Not even a blink. You know, that weird silence that happens when your world has just exploded, but everything around you keeps acting like it's normal? That was me. The rain outside was still whispering against the windows. Our cat was curled up on the couch like nothing had changed, and Nathan was snoring, loudly, like a man who had nothing to hide. I sat there in the dark, staring at the glow of my laptop. The spreadsheet was open. Operation Quiet Thunder. The name made me smirk a little. It sounded dramatic, but it felt right. Because that's what this was going to be. Quiet, but powerful enough to shake the ground he stood on. At first, I didn't know where to start. I mean, how do you dismantle a life you've built for 10 years? You can't just pack it up like boxes after Christmas. But then, a very simple, very calm thought hit me. He destroyed it without hesitation. So I can too. I started with the joint accounts. We had 3: checking, savings, and what he liked to call the fun fund. The one we used for vacations, date nights, and whatever little joys we pretended made us happy. I transferred everything that was legally mine into a separate account, one only I could access. Then I froze his cards, all of them. I didn't even feel guilty. If anything, I felt alive. Next, I opened his email. It was easy. He used the same password for everything. Mariners07. Baseball fan, terrible password. There they were. Messages between him and Olivia, going back months. Plans for business trips, shared jokes about cover stories, and a photo I didn't want to see, but couldn't unsee. Her, in his shirt, inside what looked like our car. I took screenshots. Every single one. Labeled them, dated them, sorted them into folders. I wasn't just reacting. I was documenting. Then I found something interesting. Expense reports. He'd been charging meals, hotel stays, even Uber rides to the company card, claiming they were for client meetings. It wasn't just infidelity. It was fraud. I felt a strange, cold satisfaction crawl through me. "Oh, Nathan," I whispered, "you really did all the work for me, didn't you?" By 2 a.m., I'd gathered enough digital ammunition to blow up his perfect little world. But I wasn't done. I opened my contacts and called the one person who'd always had my back. My sister, Sophia. She's a lawyer. A damn good one. Smart, calm, surgical. The kind of person who doesn't panic. She plans. She picked up on the second ring, groggy but alert. "Em, it's 2 a.m. What's wrong?" I hesitated. Then I said it. He cheated. With his boss, there was a pause, then a sigh, not of surprise, but of recognition. I knew something was off. "You okay?" "I will be," I said, "but I need your help. Tomorrow, you'll have it. Don't do anything rash tonight." "Too late," I said, half smiling at the glow of my spreadsheet. She chuckled softly. "Good. That's my sister." After we hung up, I kept working. Methodical, precise, like cataloging artifacts in the museum where I worked. Evidence, motive, consequence. Each line in the spreadsheet was another nail in the coffin of his comfort. At 3:30, I opened the kitchen drawer where we kept spare keys, old receipts, and, conveniently, his secondary phone. He thought I didn't know about it. He was wrong. Inside were more texts, more calls, pictures, voicemails from Olivia, whispering things that would make a nun faint. I recorded everything onto a flash drive and labeled it for legal review. By 4 o'clock, my anger had burned out. What replaced it was focus. Calm, deliberate, surgical focus. I walked quietly to the bedroom. Nathan was sprawled across the bed, mouth open, breathing heavy. I looked at him, really looked, and felt nothing. No love, no hate. Just the quiet realization that this was the last time I'd ever see him as my husband. I whispered, "Sleep well, Nathan. You'll need the rest." Then I walked out and sat on the balcony, watching the first light of dawn crawl over Puget Sound. The rain had stopped, leaving the world slick and reflective, like it had been freshly washed. Seattle mornings have this strange beauty, that mix of melancholy and promise. I sipped cold coffee and thought, tomorrow I start over. By the time the sun was fully up, I drafted an email to HR at his company. Anonymous, polite, concise, attaching just enough evidence to make them dig deeper. I didn't hit send yet. I wanted the timing to be perfect. At 7 a.m., Nathan finally stirred. He stretched, yawned, oblivious. "Morning," he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "Morning," I said evenly, setting a cup of coffee in front of him. He smiled, that same fake boyish smile he used when he wanted to gloss over something ugly. "You okay?" "I'm fine." He nodded, satisfied, and started scrolling through his phone. Then I saw it, the confusion creeping across his face as he checked his bank app. M? Did you use the credit card yesterday?" "Nope, because it says my card's been declined." "Oh, that's weird," I said, sipping my coffee, pretending to think. "Maybe you should ask your boss. She seems to know how you spend your money." He froze. "What?" I smiled. Small, polite, terrifyingly calm. "You heard me." His jaw clenched. "Don't start this again." "Start what?" I tilted my head. "You're the one who started something, Nathan." "I'm just finishing it." He stared at me for a long second, trying to read my face. He couldn't. I'd stopped being the version of Emily he could predict. "I'm gonna shower," he muttered. "Sure," I said. "You do that." As the water started running upstairs, I opened my laptop again. I added one final note to my spreadsheet. Phase 2, breakfast ambush, with witnesses. The plan was forming clearly now. He thought I'd cry, beg, crumble. Instead, I'd make him watch as the life he built on lies collapsed in daylight. With a smile on my face and a cup of coffee in hand, I closed the laptop, finished my drink, and whispered, "Let the thunder roll quietly, Emily." Quietly but completely. Outside, the city began to wake. Traffic hummed, birds called faintly in the drizzle, and the world moved on, as if last night hadn't happened. But I had changed, and that, I knew, was something Nathan would never see coming. Because revenge doesn't always start with rage. Sometimes it starts with calm. And mine had just begun. I woke up before the sun that morning. For the first time in months, I felt rested. Not because I'd slept, but because my mind was finally clear. There's something strangely empowering about knowing the truth. It hurts, yes. But once it's out in the open, it stops holding power over you. Nathan was still asleep, sprawled out like a man who believed the world revolved around him. I stood by the window, watching the sky shift from deep gray to pale blue. Seattle was waking up, slow and moody as always. The air smelled like wet cedar and coffee, and somehow like a new beginning. I'd already made a list in my head. Today wasn't about revenge yet, not fully. Today was about presentation. If there's one thing Nathan loved, it was appearances. He liked everything to look under control. The house, his image, me. So I decided, fine, let's give him a show. By the time he stumbled downstairs in his robe, I was already in the kitchen, apron on, flipping pancakes. Bacon sizzling, orange juice fresh squeezed, the kind of breakfast spread that screamed, "Happy family." He looked surprised. "Wow, what's all this?" I smiled, gentle and polite. "Breakfast. Sit. You'll need your energy." He laughed lightly, thinking I was joking. "Sure, you're in a good mood." "I am," I said. "It's a beautiful morning." He poured himself coffee, oblivious to the tension beneath my calm tone, and right as he took his first sip, the doorbell rang. He frowned. "Who's that?" "Oh, that's Jordan," I said casually. "You remember him, my trainer from the gym." Nathan's eyes flicked toward me, suddenly less relaxed. "Your trainer?" "Yeah." I smiled sweetly. "He's been helping me with strength training." You know, for all that heavy emotional lifting I've been doing lately. Before he could respond, Jordan walked in, cheerful, tall, and absolutely confident. Morning, Em. Smells amazing in here. He leaned down and kissed my cheek. Friendly, innocent, but timed perfectly. Nathan's jaw tightened. You invited him here? I did, I said. We're having breakfast. You don't mind, do you? He stared at me like he was trying to solve a riddle. Emily, what the hell is going on? Before I could answer, the doorbell rang again. I didn't move. I just said, That'll be Sophia. My sister walked in with her sharp black blazer and that lawyer energy that could silence a courtroom. She greeted me warmly, then turned to Nathan with a smile so polite it was practically a warning. Nathan, she said, good morning. I brought some paperwork Emily asked for. His face paled. Paperwork? Yes, Sophia said, setting the envelope on the table. Divorce petition, financial separation, and some preliminary asset divisions. Nothing personal, just legal housekeeping. The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that sucks all the oxygen out of a room. Nathan blinked, confused, angry, embarrassed, all at once. Wait, you're divorcing me? Over one mistake. One? I repeated softly. Nathan, you made 17 mistakes last night alone. I counted, his expression twisted. You went through my phone? I shrugged. No, you went through my trust. I just followed the paper trail. Jordan sat quietly, chewing bacon, watching the scene unfold like primetime TV. Sophia crossed her arms, calm and collected. Nathan pushed his chair back, voice rising. This is ridiculous, Emily. You're doing this in front of other people? Yes, I said simply. Because when you cheated, you made it public. You didn't just betray me, you embarrassed me. So consider this, the balancing of scales. He slammed his hand on the table. You're insane. Sophia's tone was razor sharp. Careful, Nathan. Everything you say can and will be used later. He glared at her, then turned back to me. You really think you can destroy me like this? I smiled, tilting my head slightly. Destroy you? Oh no, I'm just letting you watch yourself fall. That's when his phone buzzed. He glanced down, frowning. It was Olivia. Of course. His face went from anger to panic in 2 seconds. Flat. He stood abruptly, muttering something about needing to make a call, and stepped outside. I followed him to the doorway, watching as he paced on the porch. What do you mean they know? He hissed into the phone. No, I didn't tell her anything. Wait, what pictures? I didn't have to hear the rest to know. HR must have received my anonymous email, the one with receipts, screenshots, timestamps, everything. When he turned back toward me, his face was pale, sweaty, eyes darting like a cornered animal. What did you do? I just told the truth, I said softly. You know, the thing you struggle with. His phone buzzed again. Another call, this one from HR Seattle office. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. We both knew what that meant. Inside, Sophia was reviewing the paperwork with me, calm as ever. Jordan poured himself more juice, clearly enjoying the free drama with his pancakes. Nathan stormed back inside, voice trembling. You ruined my career, Emily. I looked him straight in the eye. No, Nathan. You did that when you mistook your boss's hotel room for a promotion. For a moment, he looked like he might cry, or yell, or both. Instead, he just stood there, shaking. Sophia closed her folder. We're done here. Emily, I'll email you the final documents by noon. Jordan, thanks for moral support. He grinned. Anytime. When the door closed behind them, the house felt heavier again. Quiet, but not peaceful. Nathan slumped into a chair, defeated. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "We can fix it." I almost laughed. "Fix it? You can't unbreak glass, Nathan." He looked up, eyes pleading now. "I love you, Em." I stared at him for a long moment, searching for even a trace of sincerity. Maybe once upon a time, those words would have meant something, but now they just felt like noise. "I loved you too," I said. "But that was before you taught me the difference between love and dependency." He didn't respond, just sat there, staring down at the mess he'd made. The cold food, the unsigned papers, the realization that the life he thought he controlled was slipping through his fingers. I picked up my mug and turned toward the door. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To work," I said simply. "Some of us still have jobs." The sound of the door closing behind me was quiet, almost tender. As I walked to my car, the drizzle started again. Soft, steady, cleansing. I could smell rain on the pavement, the faint salt from Puget Sound. Seattle has a way of washing everything clean, even if it takes time. That morning, I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I wasn't the woman who'd made 17 unanswered calls. I was the one who finally stopped calling. And as I drove away, watching the clouds break just enough for a slice of light to slip through, I thought, let the storm come. I'm ready this time. By Monday morning, everything had started to unravel. You know that strange calm right before a disaster hits. The air feels thick, like it knows something you don't. That was the vibe when I walked into the office. People were whispering, heads tilted, voices low. That fake sympathy tone people use when they smell scandal but don't want to look like they enjoy it. And they were all talking about Nathan. Apparently, word had spread. HR didn't waste time. They'd launched a full internal investigation, which in corporate language means, we already know you're guilty, but we'll pretend to ask questions first. When I passed by Nathan's office, his door was half shut. Inside, he was sitting at his desk, tie loosened, staring at his phone like it might offer him forgiveness. His assistant, a young guy named Trevor, avoided eye contact. That's when I knew it was bad. Trevor was the kind who loved drama. If even he looked uncomfortable, things were serious. I didn't say anything, just kept walking, coffee in hand, face neutral. Because the thing about revenge is, it works best when you don't look like you're enjoying it. By noon, the storm had officially landed. HR sent out a vague email, recent leadership changes, announcing that Nathan was taking an indefinite leave of absence to focus on personal matters. Translation: he's fired, but we're giving him a polite exit so the board doesn't panic. Olivia, his boss/affair partner, got the same treatment. Resigned to pursue other opportunities. Sure, sweetheart, like damage control. The best part, I didn't even have to lift another finger. The truth had done the heavy lifting. After work, I stopped by my favorite cafe, the little one by the waterfront with the chipped mugs and too loud jazz. The barista, a girl named May, knew my order by heart. Black coffee, 2 sugars, no cream. "You look lighter today," she said, sliding the cup toward me. I smiled. Maybe because I finally stopped carrying dead weight. She laughed, not knowing how literal that was. I sat by the window, watching seagulls fight over crumbs. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was surviving. I was living. I'd spent so long trying to keep everything from falling apart, my marriage, his reputation, our image, that I forgot what it felt like to let things crumble and just Watch. Turns out, sometimes you have to burn the bridge just to see who was willing to swim for you. Later that night, Sophia called. "You've been on the news," she said, half laughing. "What?" "Not by name. But they're talking about the executive scandal at Argent Corp. It's all over local business channels. They're calling it a cautionary tale in corporate ethics." I nearly choked on my tea. "That's poetic." "I told you," Sophia said. "Karma's just paperwork with better timing." We both laughed, but under the laughter, there was something else. Relief. That's when I realized something. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted closure. And closure isn't about watching someone else fall apart. It's about finally walking away without looking back. Still, a small part of me couldn't resist tying up the last loose ends. I opened my laptop and pulled up an old shared drive Nathan and I used for taxes. He'd left some files there, including one labeled Future Plans. Inside, there were PDFs, proposals, a few screenshots of texts between him and Olivia. Some of it was personal, some incriminating. I could have deleted them or leaked them, but instead, I did something better. I forwarded the whole folder to him. No message, no subject line, just silence. Because sometimes the absence of words hits harder than 1,000 explanations. 2 days later, he showed up at my apartment. It was raining. Again, Seattle's favorite soundtrack. I opened the door and found him standing there, soaked, holding a cardboard box. Inside were some of my old things, books, a sweater, a few photos. "I thought you might want these back," he said quietly. I looked at the box, then at him. "Thanks," he hesitated. "Emily, I'm sorry for everything there it was, the apology I'd begged for months ago. But now it just sounded like static, late, hollow, stripped of meaning." I nodded. "I know." He looked down, rain dripping from his hair. "I lost everything." I studied his face, tired, broken, smaller somehow. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger, just pity. "You didn't lose everything," I said softly. "You still have yourself. Maybe start there." He tried to smile, but it faltered. "Do you hate me?" I thought about it. No, hating you would mean I still care enough to waste the energy. He flinched, not visibly, but I saw it in his eyes. "Take care, Nathan," I said. Then I closed the door. On the other side, I heard his footsteps fade away, and with each one, it felt like a chapter closing. That night, I sat by the window, watching the rain blur the city lights into soft halos. I thought about how love can turn into resentment, and resentment into silence, and silence into freedom. I thought about how long I'd lived for someone else's comfort, how many times I'd bitten my tongue just to keep the peace, how often I convinced myself that endurance was the same thing as love. It wasn't. Endurance is what you do when you're trapped. Love is what sets you free. And finally, I was free. When I went to bed that night, I didn't check my phone, didn't replay old messages, didn't wonder if he was okay. I just lay there, listening to the hum of rain against glass. Steady, soft, healing. I smiled to myself. "Let the dominoes fall," I whispered. "I'm done picking them up." There's something strangely quiet about healing. Not peaceful, quiet. Like the world's still moving, people are still laughing, traffic's still honking, but you're watching it all from behind glass. Everything feels distant, muted. That's how it felt for me in the weeks after Nathan left. The chaos had ended, the storm had passed, but the silence that followed, It was loud in its own way. I'd wake up, make coffee, go to work, talk to people, smile even. But part of me was still adjusting to the idea that there was no we anymore. No one to text when I saw something funny. No one to cook for. And weirdly, I didn't miss him. I missed the idea of who I thought he was. One night, about a month later, I found myself sitting at my kitchen table, that same table where he'd once confessed to everything. I had my laptop open, a glass of red wine next to it, and a blank document waiting. And before I knew it, I started typing. Dear Nathan, I'm not writing to get closure. I already found that. I'm writing because there are things I never said. Things that used to choke me at night when you were sleeping peacefully beside me, dreaming of someone else. The words started to flow like water breaking through a dam. Do you remember our first apartment? That tiny place with the leaky faucet and the view of nothing but a brick wall? You hated it. I loved it. Because back then, it felt like we were building something real. But somewhere along the way, you stopped showing up. Not just physically, emotionally. You were there, but not with me. You'd talk about work, about deals, about promotions. But you never once asked me how my day was, unless it served your story. I used to think maybe I wasn't enough. That if I just cooked better meals, wore nicer clothes, stayed quiet when you came home tired, you'd look at me the way you used to. Turns out, you weren't looking at me at all. I paused. My chest felt tight, not from sadness, but release. The kind that comes when you finally say the thing you've been too scared to admit. When you told me about Olivia that night, I expected to break, to scream, to cry. But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew. I'd been grieving you long before that confession. I was just too loyal to admit the marriage had already died. I took a sip of wine and kept typing. You once told me love means forgiveness. I think you used that line to justify everything. Your temper, your lies, your absence. But love isn't supposed to be something we survive. It's something we share. And the truth is, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I stared at that line for a long time. Then I wrote the last paragraph, the one that, to this day, I still think about. If you ever wonder what happened to me, I'm fine. I still live in the same city, still walk the same streets. I drink my coffee stronger now. I laugh louder. I don't flinch when it rains anymore. Because I learned that closure isn't an ending. It's a beginning you give yourself. And just like that, I closed the laptop. I didn't save it, didn't send it, didn't even print it, because that letter wasn't for him. It was for me. I sat there in the quiet, the hum of the refrigerator, the only sound in the room, and realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at him. Not at myself. Not even at the time I lost trying to fix something that wasn't mine to fix. For the first time in months, I felt still. The next morning, I walked down to the pier near Pike Place, the one with the fishermen who always greet you, like they've known you forever. The air smelled like salt and espresso. The sun was just rising, turning the water gold. That's where I saw Ethan, Olivia's husband. He was sitting on a bench, feeding a seagull a piece of bagel. We hadn't spoken since everything went public. But when our eyes met, we both smiled. That small, knowing kind of smile two people share when they've survived the same storm. He gestured to the empty space beside him. Mind if I join you? I laughed. You mean you join me? He chuckled. Touché. We sat there for a while, watching the waves crash softly against the dock. No heavy talk, no bitterness. Just silence that felt easy. After a few minutes, he said, "Funny thing about betrayal, it doesn't just destroy. Sometimes it clears space for better things." I nodded. "Yeah, like peace." He looked at me. "Or better coffee." I grinned. "Working on that." And I meant it. Because around that time I'd started experimenting with coffee roasting. Small batches, local beans. It began as therapy, something to keep my hands busy. But slowly, it turned into something more. Something mine. As I walked back home that morning, the city felt different. The same streets, the same drizzle, but everything looked lighter. Maybe it was just me finally noticing things again. The smell of fresh bread from the bakery, the sound of a busker playing guitar, the warmth of sunlight breaking through clouds. Life was moving forward, with or without the ghosts of my past. And that letter I never sent? It became my quiet reminder that some stories don't need an audience. Some endings don't need revenge. Sometimes the real victory is simply walking away and not looking back. Because forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone back in. It means you've finally stopped waiting for them to fix what they broke. They say Seattle rain has a rhythm. Soft, relentless, like a heartbeat that never stops. And that night, standing at my doorway, I realized it wasn't just raining. It was pouring. I had just finished cleaning up after a late dinner with friends. The house smelled like garlic and laughter. There was music playing, something light, something French, when I heard it. The knocking. 3 slow, heavy knocks. At first, I thought it was a delivery. Maybe the neighbor's package again. But when I opened the door, it was him. Nathan. Soaked from head to toe, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes red and hollow. For a second, I didn't even recognize him. The man standing there wasn't the same Nathan who once strutted through the world like it belonged to him. This one looked small. He tried to smile, but his lips trembled. "Hey, he said softly. Can I come in?" I didn't answer right away. The rain behind him was loud, drumming against the porch like it was trying to warn me. Finally, I stepped aside. 5 minutes, I said. He walked in, dripping all over the hardwood floor, clutching something, a small, crumpled envelope. "I didn't know where else to go," he whispered. "Everything's gone. The job, the apartment." Olivia left. She said it was my fault I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Wasn't it?" He looked up, startled, maybe expecting pity. Instead, he found quiet. "I know," he said after a moment. "I deserve everything that's happened. I miss you, Em. I miss us." There it was. The us that no longer existed. He pulled a letter from his jacket. It was soaked, ink bleeding into the paper. "I wrote this. I've been carrying it for weeks. I wanted to tell you I'm sorry." For real this time, he placed it on the counter. I didn't touch it. "I wake up every morning and I can't breathe," he said, voice cracking. "I keep thinking about what I did. What I lost. You were the best thing that ever happened to me." And I threw it away. I let the silence stretch, the kind that makes people face themselves. Then I said quietly, "You didn't throw me away, Nathan. You threw away the version of me that tolerated your lies." He blinked, as if trying to absorb the words. "I'm not angry anymore," I added. "But I'm not yours either." He took a step closer. "Please, Emily. I can change. I swear, I'll do anything. I shook my head. You don't get to change for me. You do that for yourself. He swallowed hard. So that's it? After everything we had? I smiled sadly. No, Nathan. That's the thing. After everything we had, he looked like he wanted to argue, but the fight was gone from him. For the first time, I saw him not as the man who betrayed me, but as a man who never truly understood what love meant. I walked to the door and opened it. The sound of rain filled the room. You should go, I said softly. He hesitated. Can I hug you goodbye? I thought about it, then shook my head. Goodbyes are for people who might come back. You won't. He stood there, chest rising and falling, before finally stepping out into the downpour. He turned once, his eyes searching mine for something. Forgiveness, maybe. But I didn't give it to him. I just whispered, "Take care, Nathan," and closed the door. When the latch clicked, something inside me did too. A quiet finality. I walked back to the counter and looked at the envelope he'd left. For a second, I considered opening it, just to see what he'd written. But then I smiled, picked it up, and dropped it straight into the trash. Because I didn't need his words anymore. I already had my own. The next morning, I went to the market near Pike Place. It was early, the air was crisp, the smell of rain still fresh. I stopped by a little flower stand run by an old woman named Marcy. "Morning, sweetheart," she said. "You look different today." "Lighter," I laughed. "Guess I finally let go of something heavy." She handed me a bouquet of lilies. "Well, keep walking light then. The world's heavy enough without extra baggage," I smiled. "You have no idea." Later, I met Sophia and Jordan at a small cafe downtown. They were teasing me about my new business. My artisanal coffee blends had just started selling online, and apparently, I'd been featured in a local lifestyle blog. Sophia raised her cup. To Operation Quiet Thunder, the most peaceful storm ever executed. We laughed, clinking mugs, but underneath that laughter was something solid. Gratitude. Because I finally understood that healing doesn't look like fireworks or grand gestures. Sometimes it looks like a simple morning with people who never made you question your worth. As we left the cafe, the clouds began to break. A thin slice of sunlight cut through the gray. I walked down to the waterfront, watching ferries glide across the bay. The air tasted like salt and beginnings. And in that moment, I realized the story was over. Not because he was gone, but because I no longer needed to be the woman who waited for him to come back. I was someone new now, someone who could stand in the rain without drowning in it. I tilted my face up, letting the drizzle touch my skin. And for the first time in a long, long time, I whispered to myself, "This is what freedom feels like."